Hey, solopreneurs, Gabe here. Today we have Alex Bunyan of Shift Co. He is a leadership and career coach for professionals and solopreneurs. And you're going to love this conversation that we had. We focused on purpose and intentionality and how important that truly is for solopreneurs. And I think you're going to get a lot out of it. For more information on Alex, just go to the show notes. All of his information is in there, and he even shares the best way to get a hold of him at the end of the interview. I hope you enjoy. Alex, thank you for being on the podcast.
Hi, Gabe. Thanks for having me. Glad to be here. This is going to be fun.
Oh, I'm excited. It's gonna be great to have you on here because we're in the middle of a coaching series right now, and the coaching series is everything from mindset to methods to everything. And you're going to talk about purpose and intentionality today, which I think is so important for solopreneurs.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's good. It's so important for us to understand where we're going and what we're doing, and so I'm excited to have you share your points on that and go from there. But before we do that, I always got to hear your story. So, here you're sitting in Toronto, Canada. I am
Yep.
in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. You and I are chatting and having this interview. What is it that brought you to this time in your life? You're a coach, and tell me your story. How'd you get started in this thing?
Sure. Well, first off, the power of the internet is a pretty amazing thing, isn't it? Because you and I connected through similar interests and the LinkedIn connection, and here we are now chatting in person from point to point. So, yeah, the story. So I'll spare you and I'll spare the listeners the long version, but I'll sum up sort of the childhood chunk because it's important and it plays into how I've come to be where I'm at today. I grew up the son of an RCMP officer, which is Canada's National Police Force. Um, Basically, it covers all of the small town, rural, farming, fishing communities, anywhere that isn't big enough to have a tax base large enough to support its own police force. So it's not major cities. This is all of the small towns and rural places. And very much like the army brat lifestyle, the culture of the force is that they move their members about every 2 years. So I spent all of my childhood moving, packing into the minivan with a couple of brothers and mom and dad, and driving across the country to set up shop in the next place for a couple of years. So I was constantly the new kid. I was constantly the kid in a small town whose dad was the cop. And you can imagine being 7 or 12 or 16 and trying to fit in and find your place in the world when you're an outsider for all intents and purposes, right? You're new to this little town that's a tight-knit community. Your dad's the one who enforces laws and sort of the law of the land, and you have to see and interact and live with these people at church and at school and in the community that dad spent a good share of his time chasing around some of my friends uh, in my teenage years. So it it gave me a handful of it gave me a lot of experience, but it gave me a handful of traits I think that are partly because of this. I got really good at reading people and getting a read on who is genuine, who's authentic, who really wants to be my friend, who is setting me up to, have my Carrie moment where something happens to me at school it's embarrassing and humiliating and all of those things. So you get really good at figuring out the lay of the land pretty quickly. You get really good at making friends, or it's a lonely 2 years before you get to try again. And you get pretty good at figuring out how to fit in or how to carve out your place in that little, in that community or in your little part of the world there. So all of those things growing up have, I think, really set me up for this path that I'm on.
Yeah.
Coming out of high school, I was on this path to be a high school teacher. Actually, I was very lucky. I had some pretty influential teachers in my life growing up, and sports coaches and teachers. And so my entire university path was geared towards becoming a high school teacher, high school English specifically. And towards the end of that chunk of time, I took a job in retail because I just needed I needed a job to pay rent and buy groceries and buy beer, and maybe not all in that order, but I fell into this job in retail, very much thinking, you know what, this will be 9 months. I'll get through this last year of school, and then I'll be off and on my way to be a high school teacher, and that'll be great. Well, funny thing, the way the world works, right? I fell into this job thinking it was going to be temporary, and I loved it. I loved what I got to do with it. You know, I was very much getting the experience of using my teacher training, but just in a very different environment. So instead of standing in the front of a classroom and teaching math or science or English in my case, I was spending time working with peers in a retail setting, teaching sales skills and client management and conflict resolution. And so, very much the underlying sort of teach, help, develop, grow experience, just not in a classroom. And the funny way the world works for me, at least, is I had this inflection point towards the end of the school year. The process to become a high school teacher is that you go and you sit in these interviews, panel interview with a handful of people from the faculty in the school, and they ask you a bunch of questions, and they sort of grant you the right to continue into student teaching and the next step in the path, or they don't. And so this was all taking place at the end of the school year. In that same week or two period, the retail company I was working with won an RFP, won the right to expand out of BC and into Alberta. So it would be, expanding into the next province over, and wanted and needed a management person to spearhead that market entry. I loved what I was doing. I was good at it. Sadly, I was making more money in retail than I would have as a new teacher. That's a whole other conversation for another podcast. And so I threw my hat in the ring. And effectively what happened is the experience of most of my classmates in the interview to teaching is that those interviews all ran the same way, right? Everybody is sort of 21, 22, start of life. And the interviews were, nice to meet you. Thanks for coming in. Tell us a bit about yourself. Oh, well, okay, let's see. I went to elementary school, and then I went to college, high school, and then college, and now I'm here and I want to be a teacher, right? Nobody in those interviews has life experience. We've all just lived in a classroom, and the next step is to go and be in a classroom some more. And so the common experience of these interviews was that panel was saying to people, we think you'll be good at this 12 months from now. But what we want you to do over the next 12 months is go away. Go and do anything that isn't school. Work, travel, get a job, live in a van by the river. We don't care. But go and get some life experience and come back next year and reapply. And so this was the common experience. I expected on paper I was no different from my peers. I expected I was going to get the same answer when I sat in my interview towards the end of that window of time. And so I made the choice. I threw my hat in the ring, of course, for the management role in the retail company, and I won the job. And so I thought, well, I expect that I'm going to be told, come back in 12 months to be a teacher. I love what I'm doing. I'm good at what I'm doing. The culture of this business is phenomenal. It was very much a develop and grow talent from within, elevate people, lift them up, teach them, train them, give them skills. So I was sort of living this thing that I really wanted. I was getting that self-satisfying charge out of working with a team of people and helping them grow and all the stuff that I wanted from teaching. And so the choice was pretty clear, actually, for me. I phoned the dean or the program head for the teaching piece and just said, look, I'm going to beat you to the punch. I expect that I will be told, you'll be good at this 12 months from now, go away and do something. So I'm going to go away and do something. And maybe we're meant to cross paths again. Maybe we're not. You might see me, you might not. But good luck, and please let me graduate. So they did, but I packed up, moved across from one province to the next, and spent the next 8 years building and running and leading a market entry of a new P&L for a business, which at 22, I had no business doing, but I had a lot of trust and a lot of faith and a lot of support from the group of leaders around me in this company. And what a phenomenal choice. I'm so grateful for the decision that I made and the luck of that being the right path for me. Because I was physically removed from the rest of the company. And this was early 2000s. This was not as technologically easy as it is today with virtual. I mean, there was a lot of phone calls and things, but because there was nobody around me, I got to do a lot of the things that my peer set in the original province weren't. So for instance, the first time I had to fire somebody, right? I got a pep talk call with the HR manager, and she dialed in and was on speakerphone, but just sitting on my desk in the black box. And I got to lead that meeting and have the conversation and exit the person. My peer set didn't get that experience, right? If they had to terminate, they made a phone call. The HR person jumped in her car, drove out, sat in the meeting, ran the meeting, and away you go. So across these 8 years, I had this incredible learning experience and a ton of growth. I had all sorts of stuff that I screwed up bad and it blew up in my face, but nothing career limiting or career ending. And so, I have this sort of 8-year window, 10 years with the company, but 8 in a leadership role where I got to build. I built a team, I built a culture. I got to really practice and learn leadership from talented people around me, certainly, but in the trenches, in up to the elbows. And it wasn't always perfect. It definitely was not. There's a handful of people out there I know would agree that it was not perfect. But what a cool experience. And so this I think for my path to where I am today, this was really me seeping and steeping in that leadership soup. I was in it, I was living it, and ultimately the buck stopped with me. And that's an empowering and occasionally scary thing to know and place to live from. But I loved it. I was good at it, and I invested time and energy into people, and it just gave me such a, I think, different perspective on leadership because I wasn't doing it in a big company. This was a family-run, small medium business, 300 employees, 50 retail stores when I left, 9 when I started, and 14 of those were in my province. So I had this experience of learning it by doing it and dusting myself off after things crumbled apart. Such a great experience. Now, as everything does, I got to a point where I had started to plateau. I wasn't really learning as much anymore. I wasn't developing as fast as I wanted to or, had in the past. And so I started to look around and figure out, okay, what's next? I like what I'm doing, love the culture. The option is to see if I can buy equity and stay for the long term. I reported to the COO. He was early 40s, young family, equity owner. He wasn't leaving. CEO is very much the same type of profile. He also wasn't leaving. So my opportunities to grow were pretty stifled and pretty limited. I'd run out of boxes in the pyramid. And so made the decision to go back to school. On paper, I was a guy with an English degree, right? Not very impressive, and certainly wasn't opening a lot of doors for the next step for me. So I went back to school, earned an MBA, and I went in very much with this attitude and the approach of a lot of people who go back to school for this. I'm going to go to school. I'm going to get this great degree. I'm going to be a consultant. I'm going to travel the world and make millions of dollars and solve all the big problems of the biggest companies. And isn't this going to be exciting? I'm going to live the lifestyle. So I realized pretty early in that if that's what I had traded my life into, I would have been miserable. And the big realization for me was that I was trading away, or I was trying to trade away all of these things, pardon me, all of these things that were so meaningful for me. Working with people, developing, growing, being responsible for real impactful business, having a chance to make a lasting difference in people's lives. My team, the people I employed, the people that I led, I would have traded all of that away for an airplane, a boardroom, Excel, PowerPoint, and a cubicle, which is not inspiring to me, certainly not on purpose for me. And this is sort of the second big moment. I had this big experience of building and running a business. This is the second inflection moment in my life. I took a couple of weeks out of my MBA, and I still went to class and I still did the work, but I stopped everything related to job seeking. I didn't do networking, no coffees, no applications, nothing. And I spent that time trying to get real clarity on what I wanted to get out of this thing. Right? I'm here for this MBA program. I have 12 months to figure it out and try and answer the big question of, well, what do I want to be when I grow up? And what I thought it was, everything that I had poured into my program and designing my MBA was about strategy consulting. And I've just realized, oh shit, this is not what I want. So I had this 2-week window that I'd carved out for myself. And, I did what most people would do. I had real meaningful conversations with all the important people in my life, my family, my career advisor, anybody whose opinion I valued. We had all of these conversations. And what I ended up doing is, I realized, for me at least, trying to answer the question of what do I want to be when I grow up was too big. There's 500 things that I would love to be, and they would be interesting and exciting and inspiring, and I could do all of those things, but that's way too hard to choose. And so I got really clear on, what do I not want? What do I know for sure I will never want to touch? I'm no interest in doing, investment banking, top of that list. I'm just not that person. I don't want to be that person. So I have this long list of I don't want. And I started to just think about the jobs and work and life a little differently. So I started asking myself questions like, what are all of the things that I absolutely loved about all of the jobs I've had across all of the little places I've lived? What would I do for free? If I could create a perfect role that was just, everything I loved. If I take the money and the title and the prestige and all the stuff you're supposed to value as an MBA student, if I just park that for a minute and I think about the work, what inspires me? What gets me waking up on Monday morning thinking, I can't wait to get into the day. It's Monday. What's on tap? Because that's not where a lot of people tend to live from. And so I came out of this 2-week window with this long list of I don't wants, and a very short list of, if the job, whatever the title is, if the job has these 3 or 4 things, these are my big rocks, right? If you're familiar with the rocks, pebbles, sand story, like, these are the big rocks you got to put in your bucket first, or there isn't room for everything. So I came out with a short list of these big rocks, and it was things that were really, really meaningful to me, developing people, that thread of high school teacher, that thread of developing and building a team and a culture, that runs pretty deep with me. So that was a big rock, right? Whatever the job is, it needed to have some kind of a people development or team leadership kind of component. It had to be service oriented. I love client facing. I love working with people. I love solving problems with people. It had to be client facing in some capacity for me. So I had 3 or 4 of these big rocks, and there needed to be learning and growth. I wanted business accountability because I had that, and that fired me up.
Yeah.
If the job has these big rocks in it, or most of these big rocks, then I'm pretty comfortable that I'm going to be really successful with it. I can turn it into something that is financially viable, and I can make a good life out of this. And more importantly, I'm going to be happy and inspired doing it. I'm going to wake up on Monday and think, I'm excited it's Monday. Where most people at some point in their life, if not for most of their lives, wake up Monday and think, oh my God, it's Monday again. And that's not a great place to be, right? Like, when you're waking up with that, things are out of alignment. Certainly you're not living in a place of purpose. You're not being very intentional about putting yourself first and designing a life and designing your career and all of those things. So I come back to the world of job searching with a renewed clarity around, what do I want to be when I grow up? Who do I want to be when I grow up? And that led me down a whole fascinating path of exploring industries I would have never considered, like hospitality, for instance, theme parks, companies like Disney, companies like WestJet in Canada or Southwest, these companies that are very culture first, very on purpose. They have really, really strong clarity around what they are trying to do, why they're trying to do it, the values that they bring to, that they live from. And it opened this whole line of thinking for me around sort of purpose, because I've just spent time doing this for me as an individual. But you hear about, I mean, every company has a mission statement and values and a purpose and a vision and all these things. And 99% of the time, it's a plaque that sits on a wall somewhere that maybe gets dusted once a month. But the actions of the company, the real culture, the real purpose of the company is out of alignment with the words. The way a company acts or shows up in the world is so disjointed from what they say they are or what they aspire to be. And so I'm having this, this sort of mini moment of clarity for myself as an individual. And I'm exploring now industries, and I'm looking for companies that have that similar alignment around their own purpose and the value the company plays in the world. Anyways, long exploration around interesting, fascinating places that I wouldn't have looked at otherwise. And I stumble into executive recruitment. And it's I'll save the long-winded version of the story, but I applied into a job posting that showed up on the MBA job board, not to be an executive recruiter, but to work in a different part of the executive recruitment firm that had posted. They had a line of business that was, for all intents and purposes, executive coaching. And reading through the description on their website of what that line of business was, every one of my big rocks, check, check, check. People development, helping people unlock their potential and step into their next big thing, check. Learning and growth, I'd be working in a variety of industries and spaces, so there's always something new, and the world of business, of course, is always changing. Check. Does it have this service-oriented, client-facing kind of thing? Absolutely, it does. I'm working face-to-face with clients. Check. Like, I'm reading this thing and my eyes are lighting up, and I'm just like, this is it. This is my thing. I have to do this. And so find my way into an interview, sit down with the woman for the first conversation. And, my lead in is, look, I understand this job posting is about the search side of the business. Help me understand how all these different pillars connect. If you're in search, do you get to dabble? Are you siloed? Can you work across pillars? Like, really what I'm asking in my head is, how do I get into this, but as a path to this? And I got the deadpan blank stare response across the table of, oh yeah, we don't do that in Canada. And that's not what we're hiring for right now. Oh, okay. Well, tell me about executive search then. Like, let's talk about executive search, because that's what we're here for. And I don't want to waste your time or mine. So let's go down that path. Anyways, I must have said something right, or they were really desperate. One of the two. I like to believe I said something right. But I ended up in the role, and that took me into a sort of 6-year period where I was an executive recruiter, very much on purpose. Not quite on the bullseye the way that the executive coaching component was going to be, or at least what I thought it was going to be, but very much on purpose. It still checked a lot of my big rocks. A lot of those boxes get checked in this. And it took me down this path of spending, across the 6 years, thousands of hours sitting with, meeting, talking to, understanding, hearing the stories of really, really impressive senior leaders in all sorts of industries, from financial services to heavy industry like concrete, to legal, functional roles. Like, we covered the whole spectrum. And what I started to see as I was meeting these people and hearing these stories and uncovering, the interesting things that make people tick, and trying to solve the people puzzle of, I have a vacant role over here and they're looking for a unique thing. I have to go and find the unique person puzzle piece out here in the world and plug it in. What started to show up and what started to become really apparent is the number of people I was meeting who were running away from whatever they had. By external measurements, looking at them, by every measurement, they were the epitome of success. Great job, great package and compensation, family, house, car, vacations, lifestyle. They had it all from the outside. But they were waking up on Monday mornings, dreading Monday mornings. And so the more I did this, the more people I met, the more searches we did, and the more silver medalists we had who were close but not quite and didn't win the role, the more this started to sit with me and land with me. And I loved the work. I loved it so much that I did it in 2 places. I did the first 3 years in a big global executive recruitment firm as an agency. And when I got to a point where I realized that wasn't progressing as fast or as far as I wanted it to on my schedule, and that if I wanted to move into the executive coaching component of the business, I would have had to uproot and move to the States, which I was prepared to do, but I had just met my now wife, and some things are more important. So she won. She won over the role. But I thought, okay, this is no longer sort of really charging it up for me, and I want to try it in a different way. If I'm going to go on a path that I want to do in corporate, I want to do that at a faster pace, and I'm just not accomplishing that here. So I moved in-house, and I ended up at Royal Bank of Canada, which is one of the global top 10 banks, one of the biggest ones in our country, and leading executive recruitment for RBC as a function. Still loved the work. The environment was typical of a big global organization. There was lots of stuff that was incredible. There was a ton of talented people, and there was lots of bureaucratic, slow-moving, sort of big company stuff that's common. Anyways, so I get to the point of I've now realized that I'm not super thrilled with this. Right? I love the work, but I'm starting to wake up on Mondays and think, okay, what's going to come up today? What's going to be the sticking point that I can't seem to move a project past, or that I have no control over? So I started to have this moment of, oh God, I'm that guy. Like, I've reached the point of my Monday mornings are, it's Monday again. And so I'd started looking at, what do I do from here? And how do I get back in alignment with myself? And where I ended up coming to was the realization that I needed out. So I'd been looking, and I'd wanted to become certified as a coach and put some formal training around what I'd been doing naturally, informally, in my personal life, in my professional life, for as long as I could remember. And so the bank did what banks do up here. Our big banks tend to restructure on a pretty regular routine cycle. And so I was out. I found myself one day all of a sudden with the freedom and the flexibility to go and choose what I wanted to do next. And so after the little emotional roller coaster that comes with being put through a restructure as part of a bigger project, I thought I was going to be in a great place to navigate this, because I'd spent years helping more senior, more tenured, more experienced people navigate this for themselves. But it's totally different when it's you in that shoe instead of you on the other side of the table. So I had a little window of time where I did all the stuff that everybody does, and that I was pretty comfortable advising people to be aware of and be cautious of and not to do. I sent messages, I got interviews, I went into knee-jerk reaction. Oh my God, if I'm not this, who am I? If I'm not an executive recruiter at RBC, then who am I? I need to fix this. I need to go and find another role really quick. And so I got interviews, and I did all the things. I went through the motions, and I had this moment of clarity where I came to realize I was just doing what everybody else does, and that I would be effectively trading all of the stuff that caused me to wake up on Monday and dread Mondays. I'd be trading it from one big company to another. And there'd be some novelty, and it would be new, and there would be learning for a little bit, and it would check my big rocks for a little while. But as soon as you get up the learning curve of how do you do this job in a new environment, that novelty wears off, right? The honeymoon's over. And so I had this moment of, huh, this is not the path. Like, I don't want to go back into this place. I don't want to do it in a different company, or I don't want to change, team blue for team red or team green or whatever. Um, this is the moment. And so my wife and I had all of the grown-up conversations that are appropriate around, can we do this? Can we afford to do this? Can we afford to now be a single income family for a length of time? How long do we have to make this successful? You know, all of those sort of big grown-up conversations. And the decision was to bet on me in that moment. And so, as I said, I've looked at coach training and coach school and being certified for quite a while, but it was always too busy, right? This is the common statement. I've got a lot on the go. Maybe next month, or I'll look again later. And so I now had this place of, I had the safety net of a severance package, right? I was comfortable and protected for a length of time, so I had no urgency to do the emotional knee jerk, oh my God, I need a job. And I had the full support of a loving, wonderful woman in partner, and I was betting on me. And so I launched both feet into coach training. Did the whole sort of program. The first 6 months is more classroom based, and you're learning techniques and skills and all of that stuff. And then the back half is more like a practicum. This is the intensive, go out into the world, get real clients that pay in money and not coffee. Go start doing it. And Gabe, the fascinating thing for me was, because of the place I was in that moment when I started this process of coach training and coach schooling and formalizing it, that journey was as much what I needed for me to deal with and confront and come to terms with how I was pretty off purpose, and the things that were out of alignment with my professional life and the things that I valued. And there was so much growth and healing for me individually, personally, as I was learning the skill set and the tools to be able to open these doors now for my clients, for other professionals who are in this place of, oh God, it's Monday and I don't know what to do from here. And so that brings me out to coaching, which is, it's the most meaningful work that I've ever done. And I don't say that lightly. I've found good, strong meaning in everything I've done. But this is it for me. This is, working with somebody around helping them get that clarity that I needed to find for myself in my MBA, or that I needed to confront when I was doing the knee-jerk reaction of, I've been let go, I need a new job. Helping somebody else grab onto that and really sit with it and get a polished picture of, these are the things that matter to me. This is why I'm here. This is what I'm meant to be doing. This is why I do the things I do. Getting that really locked down. The next steps, the plan, the 17 steps to get from A to B, that becomes really easy when you've got that guiding, the North Star, or that guiding light, or your compass of purpose. Now you can be really deliberate, really intentional about, how do I get to there? If I'm at A and I want to get to B, I've got this roadmap almost of my values and my purpose, and I can be really thoughtful about mapping my course on, how do I get there? What are the next steps that I really need to take? What are the hard conversations I've been too afraid to lean into and confront, that all of a sudden become pretty easy when I'm coming from a place of purpose, when I'm coming from a place of values, when I'm coming from a place of that clarity? Makes decision-making really straightforward.
That was fantastic. I appreciate hearing the story. I always love hearing the stories of how were you shaped to get to where you are. What was the things that even happened in our childhood that then put us in this on this path? You changed. You were like an army brat. Us in the United States would consider you like an army brat. You're changing
Yeah.
every couple of
Yep.
years. You're having to make friends every couple years.
Yep. Exactly.
And it's amazing how many entrepreneurs have some form of we'll call it adversity, whether you want to call it adversity or luck or not adversity, but a
Mm,
gift or whatever. But we all have some form of an adversity throughout our lifetime that then has shaped us to get us to this point. And as I listen through this, I'm hearing you being shaped along the way. And I love your aha moment, like, oh, shit, I'm that guy now. I mean, in the simplest of terms,
yeah,
ah,
yeah.
I'm that guy.
Talk about your heart falling out of your out of the bottom of you, right? Like, oh my God, I just became that guy.
Yeah. So I have to ask, you you get real clear of what you don't want. You figure out what you
Yeah.
do want. You start making that path and that change over. Every one of us listening to this has had the, oh shit, it's time for me to make that change, or
Yeah.
I'm done. I'm making the change. I'm doing this.
Yeah.
I'm sick of this. I'm going to go do that. Whatever it might be, we've all have that thing. But then there's the work that needs to happen. And then there's the I need to get clients, or I need to get my mind right, or I need to
Hmm.
get A, B, C, D, E, F all the way through Z in place. What was the biggest challenge for you when you had the aha moment? I am that guy. I need to make this change. What was the biggest challenge of going from there to now having a thriving coaching business? What was the biggest challenge for you?
The biggest that so it's tough to narrow it to one because there is a lot there. I mean, you you and your audience can appreciate all of the challenges of going from a corporate environment where everything is set up, right? Like there's a process for everything, and there's a very defined and refined steps to go through, and moving into starting our own businesses and building our own practices and launching into the world as with a new identity, right? Launching into the world as solopreneurs and as not corporate. I'm rejecting the typical path. The big so I mean, there's 500,000 challenges that come with that. The biggest one I found actually was not so much about the process or building. It was about confronting the fear of losing my identity, in a sense. If I'm not that, what am I? And getting really comfortable with, I'm a coach. I've done this work deeply for myself. I've done this work without the title for a long, long time. There's a great coach podcast that I listen to, and the host talks a lot about, sort of, you do the work, and you have to lean into accepting yourself and being who you are, and really just believing in that. You've done this forever. It's not Coaching is a new-ish industry, new-ish thing, but the skill set has been around forever, and it's just leadership, right? Like, it's called coaching today. It'll be called something different in the years to come, but the skill set, the traits, it's leadership. It's dealing with people, it's connecting with people, it's unlocking people and helping them shift the way they see the world, or shift the way they think about things, or opening up a new perspective, and being a bit provocative and poking and prodding and asking the hard questions that we don't always ask ourselves. These are leadership qualities and traits and skills, and I've done that for as long as I can remember in some capacity or other. And so it was the fear of losing my identity as, well, if I'm not an executive recruiter, if I'm not spending my days talking to CEOs and SVPs of big companies and little companies, if I'm not that, who am I? Right? Like, I've had this sort of new coach, like, I've gone from being a professional, fully developed and grown, to being, a coach in diapers.
Mm-hmm.
But the shift there was about mindset for me. The biggest challenge was coming past that fear of, what if it doesn't work? How am I going to do this? I don't know. I've never done this before. It's bullshit. I've done this before. I just haven't done it in this wrapping paper. but I've done all of these things. I've been doing these things naturally and in professional world and in personal life for as long as I can remember, right? The common thread that comes through my story is that service, deep connection with other people, and putting myself out there, right? Being the new kid every couple of years. You have to put yourself out there or it's lonely. You know, being the chameleon that can adapt to like you have to learn how to fit in, and that's not always easy when you're the cops kid in the small town. Like, all of these things, they all play a part, and they all wind together into this common thread. And so I don't know that I've accomplished this or conquered these fears yet, but I'm way better off today than I was a year ago, than I was 6 months ago. That's the biggest challenge I found. It wasn't about things like figuring out how to set up the business or structure it. Like, I'm a smart guy. I can figure it out. I have the business experience and the degree and all, like, I have all of this stuff. There isn't much that I can't figure out, right? Jeopardy was really good for that. I'm the nerdy kid who likes puzzles.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't any of that that was really challenging. It was confronting this fear of, okay, I'm taking the path less traveled. And it can be quite a lonely experience when everybody in my world, or all of my friends and my close network, are people who are in the corporate space or who are not solopreneurs or entrepreneurs or running a startup or involved in it. Like, that's the scary part. That was the biggest challenge for me, getting over that hump of, no, I can do this. I just had to rediscover my confidence of, there is nothing I can't figure out, and there is nothing that is not solvable. And all I have to do is lean back into my purpose. The thing that sort of winds through and has steered me, and the words changed over the years, but the core piece is always there. My purpose is to make a lasting positive impact on people that lasts across generations, to make a difference in somebody's life that changes their life. And that's true in the teacher path that I was originally on. That was true, and that's what kept me in retail for 10 years. That was true in executive recruitment, and it's true today. But it gets lost in that fear of, oh my God, now it's just me.
Now I have to go make money doing this. Someone isn't already paying me to do it. Now I got to figure out a way to make money doing this.
That's right.
And see, that's one of the things, and that's one of the things that comes up is people will ask me, all right, when should I go start my own company? And I generally tell people, when you have a client. If you have a client, get going. Can you keep moving forward?
Yeah.
And I remember in our strategy call that we had, I said, what was the big thing for you? Well, clients wasn't a worry for me. I knew I could get clients. I had to get my mind wrapped around the fact that I was going to be a small business owner. I was going to be a solopreneur. I had to get my fear out of the way, like you had said.
Yeah.
And so I've never had the fear. I mean, never have I had the fear. It was always all right, where's the clients? I gotta get the clients going. I know I can do this. Where are the clients? So whenever anybody ever asks me, like, what should I do? I'm like, get a client. You get clients on board, things become a lot easier because you have revenues coming in, and then you do a great job or you do a crappy job, and then you learn when you do something not right. You learn and you keep getting better, and you continue to build that skill set. You had touched on earlier your purpose. You touched on intentionality, and that was the theme that we were going to make sure we talked about today to share with our listeners. I'm sure you have a couple additional points you'd like to share in regards to purpose and intentionality, and I think you hit it home really well with your story of purpose and your intentionality. But what else would you like to share with us regarding that?
So to me, my experience sort of corporately up to this point of solopreneurship, and certainly my experience working with clients in this capacity, is that purpose plays out at two different levels, I find. And Gabe, you've heard the advice, follow your passion. If you follow your passion, you'll never work a day in your life. Those sorts of phrases. That there's a wrapper that purpose is sort of tied up with in that to me. And I think that's actually good advice. Follow your passion. Absolutely. I agree with that. I also think that it is one of the most misunderstood and poorly executed things that we do as people in a professional setting. I'll tell you a story. I was talking to somebody who's considering becoming a client, and one of the questions that I like to ask when I'm getting to know people and we're sussing out whether we would be a good fit and whether I'm the right person to support them and they're the right person to be supported by me. One of those questions is, tell me about yourself. And I'm trying to tease out purpose, because what I've come to realize is if I ask somebody, hey, what's your purpose? Almost nobody answers that question. Almost nobody has an answer to that question, because we don't consciously take time to think about that unless we've done the type of work that I did through my training for myself and that I do with clients for, now professionally. We don't ask ourselves that question. So leading with that, what's your purpose, doesn't go anywhere. But trying to tease out their purpose, tell me about yourself. What inspires you? What breaks your heart? What drives you? What motivates you? Why do you keep getting up on Monday morning? What are you living for? Teasing all that stuff out, I can hear the things that people are passionate about. So I was talking to this person about, whether we wanted to work together. And I teased out this story, and I finally just said to them, like, what are you passionate about? You hear this advice from time to time, follow your passion. What are you passionate about? And the person, I have no doubt they believe this, but they looked dead in the camera, state of the world today. They looked dead in the camera, looked me in the eyes and said, I'm passionate about accounting. I said, bullshit. No, you're not.
What? Bullshit. No, you're not.
So look, I have no doubt this person is a passionate accountant, but I have every doubt that they are passionate about accounting itself. So where that conversation went is they're not passionate about accounting. They're passionate about all of the things that accounting gives them. They're passionate about putting order to chaos. They're passionate about accuracy and sort of craftsmanship or workmanship. They're passionate about solving financial puzzles. They're passionate about all of these things that accounting is a vehicle for. But this is what I mean about the most poorly executed and the most misunderstood part of this. Right? You say to a 7-year-old or a 17-year-old, follow your passion. Go, chase your passion. We tend to conflate passion with job title or industry or function. But your passion is that's a wrapper. It's a vehicle. The real things that are a reveal and will let you live into your passion are all of the things underneath that. So to the folks listening, for yourself and for me as a good reminder, think about what you're passionate about, but look about 6 levels down from that. Right? I mean, in my recruitment years, I heard this a lot. It would come up, I'm really passionate about XYZ, whatever the search was and whatever the person I was talking to about. And it becomes really easy to fall into that and believe in that we're all passionate about accounting or the law or coaching, right? If I put myself as an example to draw this out a little further, I am a passionate coach. I would argue I'm not actually passionate about coaching. I'm passionate about all the stuff it gives me, all the stuff that I get to deliver to people, right? I'm passionate about helping somebody unlock their potential. I'm passionate about helping them shift their thinking and watching that light bulb turn on about the way they see the world, or the way they've been engaging with their boss, or the way that they're showing up in their work and in their personal life and how that's out of balance. I'm passionate about the stuff under coaching or buried inside of coaching. So follow your passion. Great advice. I think purpose is a smaller but really important nugget that's buried in there. And digging for that is really revealing. If I think about my path, and Gabe, I'll challenge you to think about your path. All of the jobs you've had, or the stops that you've made, and the major life moments to this moment in time, your purpose has been in there and revealing itself in small ways. I would challenge that I doubt you're passionate about being an advisor. I think you're passionate about all the things underneath it. What this journey gives you and allows you to give to the world and give to your clients, and how it allows you to show up. So I guess the point that I'm trying to make in a long-winded roundabout way is, think about, spend some time with, and really be deliberate and intentional in this thinking about what it is that you love. What are all of the little pieces that are under there, right? This is just the process I went through mid-MBA when I had that crisis moment of myself. This is a much more refined version of what I was stumbling around with and figuring out in the dark with a flashlight. This is just a little bit more refined. There are very few or maybe no passionate accountants. Sorry, people passionate about accounting. There are tons of people who are passionate accountants.
Yeah, I like the way you put that. They're more excited about bringing order from chaos, helping people find some peace of mind from the confusion that has come from them having to deal with their books, to use that example.
Yeah.
No, I completely agree. I think my industry is actually kind of boring. I mean, people ask me what I do. I'm a financial advisor, and well, it's exciting. Well, the exciting thing is helping people. The exciting thing is helping people retire early. The exciting thing is helping people have the peace of mind to go do whatever they want and create the lives that they love. So I, over the last few years, have done that purpose kind of digging as well. Like, what am I really doing?
Yeah.
And what is the real important piece? And the thread that has always been there for me has always been really truly helping people and serving people in a way to get them to where they're trying to go. And it comes down to, the kind of the tagline of this whole podcast is helping people master their finances so they can create the lives that they want, can create the lives they love, create the businesses they love, create the lives they love, and have the futures that they want.
So Gabe, can I just intrude for a second? Because what I'm hearing about as you're talking about this, the passion there, the purpose for you isn't helping people manage their money. The passion and the purpose is about helping people find freedom.
Yes.
Right? Retiring early, freedom. Not having to stress or worry about their finances, freedom. That's what shows up for me hearing you talk about it, is you're delivering freedom to your clients. You're helping people achieve big goals, big dreams, earlier, faster, more efficiently, with less stress, all of this stuff.
You hit it right on the head.
I love this. And this just gives me goosebumps just talking about this stuff, because it's so cool when you can articulate it and it, and you can live it, right? It makes decision making easy. There are no more hard decisions, because this becomes your sounding board, your touchstone, your North Star, your compass, your guiding light, your whatever. All you have to do is ask yourself, does this take me closer to being on my purpose, or does this take me further from it?
I love it.
And now it's really easy to be deliberate and to be intentional in crafting not just your working life, not just your life as a solopreneur, not just your personal life, but all of it. Right? Do I get on a plane and go to Europe for a month? Do I take this client? Do I say no to this client? Do I, marry this person or this person? It becomes a really important, really valuable sounding board, touchstone, all of those things that gives direction. And I don't know, there's some Christians wear bracelets with WWJD on it. What would Jesus do?
Mm-hmm.
And it's just a little reminder, right? Like in a moment of crisis or in a moment of big decision, you don't have to overthink things too heavily. You just sort of glance down and you're like, right, this is pretty straightforward. I know what I should do. I think of purpose as a very similar sort of tool to that, or a very similar simplifier for that, right? Like we're trained in this, certainly in Western society, we're trained to overthink things now. What's the data say, right? Like, we got to dig deeper. We need more data points. We need more facts. We need to vet this. What does the data say? What does the data say? I think we all generally have a good idea within a range, won't be perfectly accurate, but we all have a good idea of right decision, wrong decision, good decision, better decision, best decision.
Interesting.
That's the role that purpose plays for me. This is a lot of the early work that I do with clients is around this, is around getting that clarity of why are you here? Why do you do the things you do? What are the things that matter? What hill would you pick to die on? What are you digging in your heels around? What are you totally comfortable letting go of and not worrying about? Is once you get that clarity and you can wrap your hands around it and you know it and you can breathe it and live it, and feel it, decision making is easy. Do I take this job or that job? Do I leave corporate and I strike out on my own or not?
So let's move on to the intentionality piece.
Sure.
We've talked about purpose, and really you're talking purpose, and I love the way you put it. You got to dig down about 6 layers. And I can tell you this for those of you listening, um, Alex knows what he's doing here. I mean, he's able to pull that out. A lot of times when we sit down as ourselves to think about what we truly have as a purpose, it's harder to pull it out. It took me a while to finally come away with freedom, and I didn't even say freedom. But it's amazing. I'm going through the process right now of rewriting my whole, what I would call my kind of story and everything. And freedom is in there like 8,700 times because I'm finally starting to get it. And so, I mean, it's crazy how it just takes time for this to come together. So I appreciate you finding that, Alex, and digging that out. So
Well, I'm pleased that I found that, and that's the word that showed up for me around it. Because clearly I'm in the right ballpark with you. Yeah.
you are in the right place.
So yeah, so intentionality. I mean, I think of intentionality as the next step, right? The hard work, the early work with clients, or just in general with people, is getting that clarity. The intentionality or the deliberateness. Most people don't live an intentional or deliberate life. Like most people live an unconscious life, right? We generally float through the motions from day to day and week to week, and it's very rare that we stop and ask ourselves, is this what I meant to be doing? Is this what I want to be doing? Right? Like the typical path for most people is, you go to school, you graduate, you move into a career, and you just sort of take opportunities as they come up. You say yes, you raise your hand, you just go with the tide a bit. And it's very, very rare in my experience that people stop and have that moment of, wait, is this what I still want to be doing 5 years from now? Does this get me closer to that thing that I really, really wanted when I was 16 and naive to the world? Right? The intentionality piece comes out of almost an interrupt. Right? I mean, look, Dave, most of the clients that I work with come to coaching with a puzzle or a problem to solve. Right? And broadly, my population broadly comes out of the business world. Solopreneurs, corporate, a little mix of the both. But most people come to coaching with this, here's my problem, help. And we start to dig into this, and it's an interrupt, right? It's let's just park the problem for a second. Let's step back. You made the point about it's really, really difficult for us to do this for ourselves. And to me, that's about perspective, and it's about being too close to it. I mean, there's been lots of times working with my coach where he'll ask me something, or my first coach who helped me through the training phase, she would ask me something, and it would make me break into laughter because it was word for word the same thing that I had asked somebody 2 or 3 days earlier. And you just like it's hilarious because I couldn't see it to ask myself that same question. You can't. You lose perspective when it's just the trees, and your coach or the people around you who have perspective help you sort of raise up and see the forest. So the intentionality piece is that interrupt of, step back, and let's get that clarity of where are you trying to get to? Let's design this, or let's be thoughtful about what you're saying yes to, what you're allowing into your day, what's taking over your time, what you're saying no to and keeping out of your day, and whether that's good or bad. The intentionality piece is about, I've got the clarity, I've sharpened up my pencil, and I've sort of drafted for myself, what is my purpose? I can articulate it, or I'm closer to being able to put my finger on it now. Now, what do I do with that? Because having it is great, but if it becomes one of those plaques on the wall that just gets dusted now and then, there's no real point. You're better off just living the default life. So the intentionality piece is about phase 2. You've got the clarity. Now what? Or as my current coach likes to say, so what now? Okay. You've realized that you're unfulfilled in your job, but you're too successful, or you're too deep to get out of it without it being messy. Okay. So what now? What are the deliberate, the intentional steps, calls, conversations that you need to take or make or have to take a step forward off of this path of wherever the tide and the winds blow, onto the path of, I'm going that way, and I need to take some steps to get there. The intentionality is like follow through. I don't know. I mean, like good Canadian kid, we grew up playing hockey. An important part of the shot is the follow through. Right? Like, it's one thing to wind up, hit the puck, but if you don't follow through, you lose a ton. You lose aim, you lose accuracy, you lose a bunch of stuff. So the intentionality piece to me is about follow through. Having this purpose, getting it clear, getting that sort of inner clarity with yourself is great. And then what? So what now? What do you do with this? And it's an act of courage.
It is an act of courage because you've got to make a step.
Yeah.
And what I was going to say is that is in my the experience with my coach that I work with is, what is your next best step?
Great question.
So you've now figured out where you're going. You have your purpose. You have your vision. What is your next best step to fulfill your purpose? And that's your intentionality, which I love.
Yeah.
I absolutely love.
Yeah.
So, Alex, this is a podcast about money. Now, I have to tell each of you that have been listening, you have just gotten an hour's worth of gold from Alex on understanding. Uh, it's very good because you've had a ton of information and stories to help us relate to, really, what is my purpose? Because I can guarantee you there's somebody sitting out there struggling, like, what is the purpose of what am I really trying to do? But then you in your assessment of me, help someone understand, all right, you got to dig a little bit deeper. And now with the idea of what is your next best step being your intentionality. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to move us in to the intention of this podcast, and is to share unbelievable, great information from guests, but then also talk a little bit about money.
Yep.
So
let's do it.
And so my few questions I ask everybody, and I'm really curious to hear what your third answer is, based on the our conversation we had just a little bit ago. But the first question I ask everybody is what is the smartest thing you've ever done regarding money as a solopreneur? And tell me that story.
Sure. It's a short story because it's relatively new. Realizing that as smart as I am, I can't do it alone. I needed and wanted and chose help. And this is not typical for me, right? Growing up the way I did and having the life experiences that I've had, I've always been a pretty independent, I'll figure it out. I'll just work harder. I can get through this on my own. But asking for help, educating myself, but really outsourcing this to an expert. I mean, look, I have all the tools and the talents that I could figure out how to be an effective manager of my own money and my financial situation. But Gabe, there's no chance I'm going to do that better in my evenings and weekends than somebody who is a professional, who's trained, who is doing this who's living and breathing and sleeping this, right? 8, 10, 12, however many hours a day, every day. I'm never going to beat somebody who's doing this as their profession in my spare time, learning at the fringe of, what I'm trying to do in my own business, right? Like my time goes towards becoming a better coach, being, learning, developing, growing my skill set, working with more people to get more breadth and experience. That's where I want to be investing my time. And so the smartest move I've ever made is realizing that I'm not going to beat the market and I'm not going to beat the experts on my own, and being okay with that. So there's another little mindset shift around this. Like I've known this for years and years and years and years and years, but it's only been in the last probably 5 or 6 years that I've gained the humility to go and ask for help.
Very good.
That's the biggest thing for me. That was the smartest move I made. Because do you know what? I sleep very well at night now, knowing that I'm not going to screw something up or miss an opportunity or not do something intelligent at the right moment, or do something dumb at the wrong moment, even worse. I sleep very well at night because somebody else is watching that, and I don't have to. Somebody I know, like, and trust, who's proven themselves over time, and I can just say, I trust you. Here's what we're trying to accomplish. Help. And then they go to work and they use the expertise, and that gets me to a place of freedom. I'm not worrying about it. It's not my problem to solve anymore. I just need to be involved enough and keep my eyes and ears open, and be aware of where we're at and what's going on, and whether we're on track towards the plan or not.
Perfect. How about the other one? The biggest money mistake you've made, and tell me that story.
Sure. Well, like, the easy place to go would be not making the smart decision for as long as it took me. Because that is true. I think that absolutely is one of the dumbest money moves I've made, or the biggest mistakes I've made. I've always been interested in stocks, markets. Like, this is a fascinating thing, and maybe this is my nerdy desire to learn, but this is fascinating stuff. I started looking at stocks, the markets, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, when I was about 20. But I didn't do anything with that. I didn't invest. I didn't go to, get help. I read. I focused on the knowledge piece, but I wasn't able to get over the fear of actually putting my money out there and risking it. Oh God, what if I screw it up? So that's the easy answer to move into. Not asking for help, not confronting this, not starting early, right? I mean, compounding interest is the magic of your space. And the only thing you can really do to amplify that is start as soon as you can. And I didn't.
That's a great lesson.
Yeah. And it's one that I have every intention of not letting my children repeat, because it's too late for me, right? My time machine is broken. My crystal ball doesn't work. So I can't see the future and I can't go back into the past.
Right.
But I can try and share these lessons and share this wisdom with people younger than me who have that time, who they can still jump in.
You're not that old, my friend. You've still got time. So you've got time. So just keep going and keep moving forward.
Yeah. Well, I recognize that, and I appreciate that, because it's nice to hear. I started going gray at 18, so I've always looked old. The other piece I was going to say is, by not seeking help, by not sort of putting myself out there, I ended up earlier in life. I've made some questionable decisions around investments. I own a handful of investment properties. I probably shouldn't have bought one of those, but without some support and without expert advice and some guidance, my emotions got ahead of me. So I learned as much as I thought I needed to, and then something new and shiny and exciting showed up, and I thought, well, I'm smart, I'll figure this out, and there we go. Um, yeah, I rushed into the second one.
Yeah, it makes sense.
So I don't know. I think it all sort of comes to this idea, though, of the value of having expert advice, having guidance, having somebody to talk to, right? I mean, I think I'd be hugely hypocritical if I didn't believe in that, considering that is the value I bring, right? Like I'm a sounding board and I'm an advisor and I'm a, a trusted coach, consultant, advice person to people. I mean, I have to believe in that because it's a piece of me, but also because how hypocritical would I be if I didn't?
Yes. Yes, definitely. So let's go to that last question. That last question being, what does mastering your finances mean to you?
Yeah. So ma- making smart decisions, not falling victim to my own emotional ups and downs or to fads or trends in the market, or like I mastering my finances to me means investing, not trading, being deliberate and intentional and going into something with the long-term view, and then managing myself so that I'm not the problem. Um, it also means having enough free cash flow to live how I want to live without worrying. As I said, having taken the anxiety of, am I doing this right? Am I screwing it up? Having given that to a professional gives me a whole lot of peace of mind. So I don't have to worry, well, I'm still investing, while I'm saving, and well, I can still afford to live in the lifestyle that I want, and I can support, our family needs, and like you can live life from a place of not having to worry, not having to be really anxious or on edge about like, this thing really needs to happen or I'm in trouble. So being able to live the lifestyle and afford the lifestyle that I want while still investing and saving to be secure for my family, for my future, for my kids, for all of the important people that will outlive me.
I love it. Absolutely perfect.
That's what money mastery or mastering my finances means to me. Getting to a place where I can live the life I want and still also be putting away so that I'm securing the future of the people that matter.
So it comes down to, like you said with me earlier, freedom.
Yeah,
Comes down to freedom.
it does.
So, Alex, this has been fantastic. Is there anything else you would like to share?
Well, you and your audience now know how long-winded I can get in some of the stories. So, do you know what? I think it's just I just want to say thank you. Having the time to just share and chat and be with you. Gabe, you and I have had some fantastic conversations leading up to this, and getting to know each other and building our relationship. And the chance to do this and bring in your audience to sort of be a fly on the wall of that. This has been a fantastic and fun experience, and I'm blessed. I appreciate the opportunity to talk about something that is so important and meaningful to me selfishly. Any chance I get to talk about purpose or to help people get a little closer to theirs and understanding what it is for them, any chance I have to talk about those things, that intentionality, being deliberate, you know I'll take it. And you've given me the opportunity to have that conversation, but also to share that conversation with a whole lot more people than just you and I together.
Well, you're welcome. You did a fantastic job. If any of my listeners want to find you and they would like to reach out to you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, I'd love to. As I said, I love talking about this stuff. I could do this all day. So if anybody's interested in connecting for a conversation or just to pick my brain or just to get to know each other, email, website, those are probably the easiest places to start. www.shiftco.ca, and email is Alex, Alex, at shiftco.ca, or LinkedIn is probably the best place, for your listeners, for anybody who's watching this or hearing this. Um, that's a real snapshot into me. The profile is done up and it's not your typical LinkedIn business profile. There's a lot of personal me that shows up in it. So connect with me there, find me there, reach out. Yeah, I'd love to chat.
Very good. Well, thank you very much for being on the podcast today. I really appreciate it.
Oh, Gabe, thank you. This was fun. I can't wait to do this again and to chat more in the future.
Sounds good. Well, solopreneurs, I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Alex Bunyan of Shift Co. I thought he did a fantastic job of sharing purpose and intentionality and how important it is to dig deep, to really get a feel for your purpose and what you're really trying to do with your life and your business so that your business supports your life and you can start to really enjoy this great life that we have available to us. And then the intentionality, the way my takeaway on that is what is your next best step? And one of the things Alex reminded me of at the end of our conversation and our little debrief afterwards was keep in mind that taking the steps to understand your purpose is actually an act of intentionality. So a lot of people don't take the time to do that. Just by taking the time to do that is an act of intentionality to find your purpose so that you know really where you're going with your life, with your business, with everything around you. So thanks again for listening. If you enjoyed this, please share this with a friend, and I truly appreciate it. Have a great day.